A delightful conversation about the conscious community with Dnew. Yeah, what's going on, party people? The place to be. I go by the name of the BK Padres, transmitting all the way live. New York is the city, Brooklyn is the borough. What's good? What's popping? Hope everybody's doing well. And as always, if you have not already, please like, share, and subscribe. Share this link. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend that it's him again. And if you like how it goes down at the BK Padres, please support me. PayPal, which the link should be pinned at the top of the chat. Or if you'd like to be a monthly supporter of BK, you can become a Patreon where you get an assortment of goodies to enhance your personal Bible study. And before we continue, of course, we got to show much love to the party people in the chat. We got Rox B on the check-in. We got Melanie Hightower. We got the indelible, the incredible Nate2D2. We got Shotty Mills in the building. We got most excellent Theophilus. We got my main man, Mr. Green, the real American, Mr. Phil Fox, Adrian Jones, my man Romy Rome in the house. What's going on? We got Believing Thinkers. We got my man SOC. You know what I mean? We got some people here, man. We got some people, and hopefully you guys are sharing the link to your respective interwebs. And we got Michelle Turner in the building. We got Steve's Fly. Yes, this is good. This is good. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have a very special guest, dear friend, fellow partner in the gospel, queen of all mods. We'll get into what that means in a minute. Of course, I'm talking about one of the amazing bodega ladies, Miss Dnew. What's going on, D?
Hey, happy Saturday. We've never done anything on a Saturday before, so
This is true.
we're making history right here.
There it is. There it is. And I just called you the queen of all mods, right? And the word mod is short for moderator. And for those who are uninitiated, can you do a quick summary of what it means to be a moderator for a YouTube channel?
So sometimes when you go to the YouTube live chats, as you can see in the chat right now, there are people whose names appear blue and it has a little wrench beside their name. Basically, the job of a moderator is to make sure that the live chat flows smoothly. If you have rules for the space, that all of the rules are followed, and just to facilitate good dialogue in the live chat. And so we have some star mods in your chat, BK. Nate T2D2 is mod of the month every month for like the last. So
good. And now the reason why we call you queen of the mods because you moderate quite a few channels. Do you know by off the head how many channels you moderate?
I think maybe Nate would probably know better. I don't know, maybe 25 or something like that. Wow. I don't know, 20 to 25. I don't know.
Wow. Serve of Christ. It's our job to exercise absolute power over others. Oh man, that's hilarious. But and you've definitely not only do you keep the flow and keep everybody, staying on topic with the rules, but you also defend the gospel in the chat as well. So, but you have kind of transitioned a little bit from defending it from just the chat to actually getting on camera and defending the gospel. So what made you decide to make that jump? Because a lot of moderators, are pretty much happy with doing their job in the chat. What made you decide, what? People need to see my face as I defend the gospel.
I don't know about the face part, but it was you. It was you, BK. You did it.
Me.
Yeah, it was you. I don't know. Just the whole creation of the bodega. And then, of course, the bodega ladies. And then, two, you brought some videos to my attention that required some attention. And so that really is the thing that kind of got me in front of the camera on and off.
Cool. But not only do you jump on the camera to defend, but you defend against specific types of false doctrine, right? In one specific arena, Michelle Turner, BK be trying to force people to be great. Yeah, that's true. That is very true. I take that. I will take that charge. Yes. So, you definitely have kind of focused your attention on what we call the conscious community, right? So, why that particular community above others? Now, you definitely address others as well, but you've definitely done some interesting work when it comes to that particular demographic. So, the question is, why them? Why does that resonate with you more?
Well, really, like as I said a few moments ago, really it was those videos that you brought to my attention. So the Bodega Ladies joined you and Adam Coleman, and we critiqued a dialogue between Zion Lex and Polite. And in that video, I addressed some things that Polite had said because it was questionable. Some of the things that he said was questionable.
And the sniper was born.
And then you brought to my, this is you, BK, it's all you. You brought to my attention a video with young Pharaoh, and he too said some questionable things that I just wanted to be able to address because it appeared that people were actually believing him. So
Right.
this is this is this is why I kind of needed to say some things, because people believe him, right? I wanted to do my part in helping people to realize that what he was saying was a whole lot of mess. And so
Right.
that's why I got my
Now
attention.
that's a huge way to make your debut. You tackle not just some run of the mill YouTubers. I'm like, these dudes have hundreds of thousands of subs, and they are very monumental in helping people leave the church. Like, these
Mhm,
are huge, individuals. So
mhm.
for you to take those guys down that's big. You know.
I mean, they just needed to, what they said just needed to be addressed. So
Right, right. So, but it's not just them two, but the community in general, right? And you recently had a chance to address some of the falsehoods at the Doctrine for the Block conference.
mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about that experience? But before that, Michelle Turner would like to tell everyone that Dnew ended young Pharaoh's career. So,
That too is questionable.
what you did, but some headshots were definitely given. Absolutely. But yeah, please tell us about your experience at Doctrine for the Block.
Well, it was amazing. That was my first time speaking at a conference. So Doctrine for the Block, for those of you who don't know, is an urban apologetic conference that's put on by Vocab Malone, and by a local church there in Phoenix. And so they just invite people from all over the country to talk about certain apologetic issues, urban and classical apologetic issues. So that was a good experience. I think my first time speaking at a conference was a good experience. So I don't have anything negative to say.
Cool, cool. And hopefully there'll be more opportunities for you to speak on this and other subjects as well. So it's really important to have, women apologists do their thing, because we can do a lot. One thing I can do is teach how to be a godly woman, because spoiler, I'm not a godly woman,
Right.
right? So we need women to step up and really, take the lead in these various forms of apologetics where men just are not qualified, to be honest with you, to talk about certain things. So we definitely need people like yourself to do what you're doing and to continue, not only to continue, but also to inspire other women to also, take up the mantle of apologetics. So thank you for being a trailblazer in this regard, because you definitely are. You and the rest of the bodega ladies.
God.
So, with that being said, you have some things you would like to share with us. Some of these things were shared at the conference, right?
Mhm.
So we're gonna break it down. We're gonna have this delightful, you know, service request, right? No matter how hard he tries, he'll never be. Yeah, I'm not trying though, bro. I'm really not trying.
It's immutable. It
And
is immutable.
of course, Nate here taking advantage of what I said. Terrible, terrible. So, but yes, but let's get into this. So, what is the conscious community, and why are they wrong about everything? Man, subtlety is definitely not one of your gifts, Stevie.
Provocative. Yes.
So should I go to the next slide or?
Um, yeah, you can. Here, let me just talk about before you go to the next slide. Let me just talk about the conscious community because, sometimes we can be in the area of urban apologetics and hear the phrase, but we might not know exactly what it is. So, I think a good way of grappling with what the conscious community is if we separate the words, right? Conscious from community. Conscious is a word that it brings with it this idea of being awake and being aware of your environment, being aware of your surroundings, and being aware of yourself, like being aware of who you are. And in the medical field, there's different ways to assess a person's level of consciousness. One of the things that you can ask them about is if they know what time it is, if they know where they are. But one key thing you can also ask them is if they know who they are. You ask them questions about their identity. And this is the thing that translates very well to the conscious community, where someone lands on the range of consciousness is all the way related to their knowledge of themselves and with their identity. So, when we're talking about the conscious community, we're dealing with issues surrounding identity for a group of people. So in this context, it's people of African descent or Black people like me.
And yes, Dnew is Black, believe it or not, because people have actually doubted her Blackness.
Yeah.
So that's why I make it.
She said that I wasn't, but I think I am,
Yeah, you pretty much are. Yeah. So, all right. So with that being said.
So, in the conscious community, it's kind of like an umbrella term because within the community or underneath the umbrella, you can see that there's different groups. So actually, we'll talk about the ideology. We won't talk about people. So we have Hebrew Israelism. We have Moorish Science Temple. We have Nation of Islam. A lot of us are familiar with the Hebrew Israelite doctrine. It centers very heavily on identity, right? They believe themselves to be the descendants of the biblical Hebrews, right? Their whole doctrine is based on that identity. It's an ideology based on identity. Moorish Science Temple, started by noble Drew elite, where the national identity of being a Moor. Moor is basically a term that refers to Black Muslims that hailed from the region of Morocco, what we call Morocco today. If you're going to be a member of this group, you need to know that this is your national identity. Okay, you can go to the next, and then Nation of Islam. You can go to the next slide if you want. Sure. And then other groups within the conscious community, we have the 5% Nation, or the Nation of Gods and Earths is their other name. Afrocentric atheism, we have African spirituality. 5%, the Nation of Gods and Earth is just like a clear-cut member of the conscious community. They teach that Black people are the original people. So Black men are the fathers of civilization. Black women are the mothers of civilization. So Father God, Mother Earth. So Black men are God or Allah, and Black women are Earth, right? If you're going to be a 5%er, you need to know this about yourself. You need to know who you are. It's an ideology based on identity. But and then of course too, we have the Kemetic community, which we're going to kind of park at in a few minutes. But if you juxtapose all of these groups with Christianity isn't based on the identity of any of its proponents, right? Christianity is solely based on the person of Jesus Christ, who is God, right? That he died for our sins, according to the scripture, that he was buried, that he rose on the third day, according to the scripture. So it's an ideology that's not based on our identity at all. Very different from the conscious community.
Yeah, I think the 5%, how it goes again, the 85ers are the deaf, dumb, and blind, being controlled by the 15%, and the remaining 5% are the poor, righteous teachers who are opposed to civilize the 85 about the 15.
Okay.
I think that's how.
Okay, BK, go ahead.
I'm from New York. I mean, it's just, yeah. So, but yeah, but let's keep it moving. All right.
Okay, so despite these groups being different, I mean, there's some similarities between some of them and some overlap. You know, you have the NOI branching off of more Science Temple, you have the 5%ers branching off of NOI, but you know, despite their differences, there's definitely some similarities. So um, there's two threads of similarity that I found between all of them. And the first thread is that there seems to be, and it seems almost to be required, that you have this hatred of Christianity. I mean, I can call it disdain or, you know, it's hatred. It's hatred. So Christianity is seen as an oppressive religion. It's seen as the white man's religion and seen as something that shouldn't be practiced by anyone who's Black. Okay. And then the second similar thread that runs through all of these groups is that you know, to some extent, whatever that extent is, however high, deep, low, wide it is, to some extent, they see Europeans and or European culture as like as aversive, like as a foe. Let's call it a foe, not a friend, right? And they see those two things at Europeans and European culture as you know, representations of systems of oppression. So they're seen as you know, representing the transatlantic slave trade or
Mm-hmm.
colonialism or racism.
Mm,
So those are the two similar threads I think that we can say that we find throughout all of these groups within the conscious community.
okay.
Mhm. Okay, so for the presentation, let me just say this. Let me just say this. I'm not an expert. Okay. Surprise, surprise, spoiler alert. I'm not a comedic practitioner. So
No.
I'm just saying,
Dang.
just to be clear, just to be clear. Um, but, you know, we learn more as we learn more, right? So for my presentation, I just kind of wanted to, you know, kind of give a basic introductory um, um, snippet of what the Kemetic community is. So, Kemeticism is the ideology, that's what it's called. And then people who practice or hold to Kemeticism are referred to as Kemetics or Kemetic practitioners. I guess it's not limited to those two names, but
Mm-hmm.
and then it can also be referred to as, again, not limited to only these things, but you might also hear it referred to as Kemetic science, Kemetic spirituality, Kemetic spiritual science, the Kemetic tradition. You know, it just depends on who you're speaking to.
Right.
Um, you can go to the next slide.
Right. And for those who might not know, the word Kemet is considered the ancient word for Egypt.
Mhm.
Right. So when she's talking about the Kemetic community, she's talking about people who purport themselves to subscribe to an ancient Egyptian worldview. So,
Mhm.
all
And
right.
that's the next slide.
Oh, boom. My
There you
bad.
go.
I didn't mean to jump the gun. I'm sorry.
This is why. This is that. That's what that is. So as BK just said, Kemet it literally means black land, and it refers to the Nile River is in Egypt. Every year, the River would flood and then recede, and what would be left over, the soil or silt that would be left over, was dark, and so that's where black land comes from. So as BK just said, Kemet is the region that we today call Egypt. So Kemet equals ancient Egypt.
Right, right. Cool.
So you can pause there, BK, because you know, this is the thing that we find though when we start to listen more and more to the Kemetic community. And then we start to look at what ancient Egypt actually believed and practiced. It's very different. You know, it kind of lacks some not some, it lacks congruency. Um, and it's interesting though, BK, because the claim made by many in the community is that, you know, Black people need to make this return to Kemetic spirituality or to, you know, their African spiritual roots, but they don't make that return.
Mm.
You know about this. You've done like a whole bunch of shows on this, just showing that what's said today in the community isn't really reflective of what, as you term, the indigenous people to the area would have thought and or believed. And so for my presentation, what I did was I discussed three aspects of of ancient Egypt, and then I discussed a few of the beliefs that we hear today. So if you can, yeah,
Yeah,
um,
that's little. Yeah, the slide kind of. But go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, okay. What happens if you press enter again? Does the
The next slide, the next little thing will pop up.
on the next one? Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll start with this. Okay, so the three aspects that I spoke about were cosmogony, religion, and the afterlife. And so for cosmogony, Kemet had what's called cosmogonies. I'm going to be probably interchanging ancient Egypt with Kemet throughout,
Right.
just
Right.
so you know.
So everybody knows when she says Egypt, she means Kemet and vice versa.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So
So Kemet had what's called cosmogonies or creation myths. So cosmogony basically is a word that means the origin or the beginning of the universe or reality. We are probably familiar with the word cosmology. Cosmology is the study of the structure of the universe and then changes that happen within the universe. But cosmogony is just concerned with the actual origin of the universe. So ancient Egyptians had these creation myths where they accounted for reality, and in these creation myths, the stars of the show were their deities, their gods. So they had, you know, you've talked about this on your show. They had several creation myths, and it just they vary depending on where you are in the timeline of Egypt, of Kemet, and the location, your location. But there's three ones or four, depending on who you talk to.
mm-hmm.
There's about three or four major creation myths, but the one I wanted to talk about and the one that I talked about in the presentation was the Heliopolitan creation myth, the Heliopolitan mythology.
Mm-hmm.
So the Heliopolitan cosmogony, it centers around an ennead of gods. Ennead, I like to define terms.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So ennead means group of nine. So as it relates to this, ennead just means a group of nine gods. And so this is the Heliopolitan creation myth. Remember, it is an account for how the universe originated and how reality it originated. Okay. Do you have anything to say, BK? Or?
No, I mean it's interesting, right? Because when you bring up the idea of the Bible ripping off ancient Egypt, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing: nowhere in the creation account in the Bible there is no cosmogony. There is no birth of Yahweh in Genesis. God has always been, whereas in ancient Egypt, all the main deities were born of something.
Right.
Usually the waters of Nun, right?
Mm-hmm.
They arrive from this ancient, mound that emerges from the water. So it's like these are contingent beings,
Yeah.
right? So it's like how's Yahweh biting off of these dudes when Yahweh is not a contingent being, whereas all your deities are. Right. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Exactly.
But,
so I'm just going to quickly say a few things about the Heliopolitan creation myth. So in the beginning, there, as BK, as you just said, there is nothing but water. There's this primordial abyss of water. Primordial means that it existed from the beginning of time. That's what primordial means. And they called this water, they called it Dnew. Okay. So Atum is the god in this myth who is the source or the creator of everything. And he comes out of, or he arises out of Dnew. Okay. In some accounts, again, because they're different. In some accounts of this myth, he uses magic to mate with his shadow, and he gives birth to his deity children. The method of birth is either spitting or sneezing them out. So his deity children's names are Shu, who's the god of air, and Tefnut, who is the goddess, of moisture. Okay.
That's the most sanitized version of that creation myth I've
I
heard in quite
mean,
some time.
you know, this
But
is
yeah,
the
I know
delicate
it's a family show, right? Right. No, I respect it. I respect it.
But to your point, as I said, there's different variations of the story. Um, so in other accounts, which is what BK is alluding to, we have Atum pleasuring himself. Okay, and then from that action, Shu and Tefnut come from his seed. Okay, this is just chalk it up to variation. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Shu and Tefnut leave Atom and they go to establish the world. And Atom, in their absence, gets so worried about them that he takes out his eye and he has it go look for them. So eventually, Shu and Tefnut, they come back with his eye. That eye is then one of the names is that it now becomes the all-seeing eye. Okay, so he's so happy that he starts to cry, and his tears are what give birth to humanity, to men and women. Okay. Again, just so I can update us, this is an account for how creation and reality started. Okay. But at this point, humanity has nowhere to live. So Shu and Tefnut, they get together. Yes, they're siblings, and they give birth to Geb, who's the earth god, and to Nut, who's the sky goddess. So now humans have a place to live, right? We have air, moisture, earth, and sky. Okay. Then Geb and Nut fall in love. Yes, they're siblings, and they become inseparable. So Atom isn't really pleased with this, and so he separates them. Remember, they're earth and sky. He separates them with air, which is Shu, the god Shu, but not before Nut is pregnant. And so Nut gives birth to 4 deity children: Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys. Okay. And then Osiris and Isis get together. Yes, they're siblings. And they have Horus, who then rounds out the Ennead of gods. That's 9 gods. Okay. So again, this is one account for how the universe, which is real, and reality started. Okay. We can move up. Do you have anything to say?
Well, I mean, again, right? When you do a compare and contrast with how the Bible illustrates creation, it's very hard for someone to make this one-to-one correlation between these creation stories. Clearly, they're vastly different.
Vastly.
You know what I mean? So, but yeah. So, all right. So,
and then I spoke about religion. So it's very interesting because the Kemetic community today will do their utmost to try to not be associated with anything that's called religion or religious. But ancient Egypt was actually highly religious, right? There wasn't really a secular realm in Kemet. Like every aspect of ancient Egyptian culture reflected their religious beliefs, right? Anything from agriculture to the sun, the rising of the sun, the movement of the sun across the sky, the setting of the sun, politics. All of these involved deities, or their involvement with deities, I should say. And so ancient Egypt also had religious texts, right? They had literature. They had religious edifices. Pyramids, tombs, and temples they are beautiful structures, but they are also religious edifices as well, right? They believed that their deities were present and worked within these edifices. They had religious festivals, they had temple priesthood was a major institution in ancient Egyptian society. These priests would perform duties like prayers, rituals. All of this is religious. Okay, it's all religious in nature. They had a code of ethics, a code of morals that they actually lived by, like in real life. That wasn't merely symbolic, right? They actually lived by these principles. It was called ma'at. And they believed themselves to have, rewards or punishments for complying or not complying, for lack of a better term, with ma'at. Okay, so this is just to say that ancient Egypt was absolutely, absolutely religious.
No, facts. I mean, you don't go out of your way to prepare for the next life if you did not believe in a next life,
Right, right.
So it's
Yeah.
pretty
And
cut and dry.
and with that, like the goal of living was to prepare for the afterlife, right? Um, that's what mummification was all about, right? Costly and specific service that not everyone was able to afford. You were fortunate to be able to be mummified, right? They did it because of their beliefs of the afterlife. A lot can be said about that, but we can move on.
Cool. All right.
So I also spoke, so we just spoke about Kemet, ancient Egypt, and now I want to kind of talk about, the community today. So, in the effort to not have anything to do with religion, the Kemetic community adamantly, strongly rejects a belief in the Christian God, and really the concept of God as most people understand it to be. So instead of that, they have this conceptualization of God. For them, it would be God, quotes, as this idea of the one in many. So that's a popular phrase, the one in many, but it is, a divine source or a divine force, a supreme being, this divine oneness that differentiates itself, as they say, into different aspects or manifestations or principles is also is also used a lot. And so they call this divine source or force netter or netter, and then the differentiated aspects or principles are called the neteru. Okay, so netter is in everything, like that. Everything includes me, you, the dog, the cat, the birds, like all of nature, everything. Okay. And so in Kemeticism, the belief then is that we are divine, that we are simply a differentiation of that divine force. And so we're a part of everything, and everything is a part of us, even things like tables. Okay. And so it's a form of pantheism, essentially.
Yep, they're Jedi's. They
Hmm.
believe in the Force, right?
Hmm.
Obi-Wan, I always bring this up when Obi-Wan explains the Force to Skywalker, to Luke. That's the definition he gives them, that it permeates all of us. It's in the air, it's in these inanimate objects, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's exactly what they teach, and that's not what the indigenous people of Kemet believed in at all. This is a separate belief system completely. So
I do not disagree.
yeah. So continue or
Yeah, let me see what the next slide is here.
all right.
Okay, yeah, so for the rest of their beliefs, I wanted to, in a way, use their own words. And so I just got a hold of some memes. I just wanted to address some of their information that directly attacks Christianity.
Okay.
um, you know, as I alluded to at the top, it's like Kemetics have, like, they really do have this visceral reaction to Christianity. And it seems like, Christianity in the Bible is talked about just as much as comedicism proper is talked about, which is odd. It's kind of odd. And so I pulled these memes. I wanted to speak about their beliefs in their own words, and just to provide an offense and a defense for these claims. So the first one is that Christianity is the white man's religion. We've all heard that before. This idea that Christianity, that Christians believe in a white Jesus, and that Christianity excludes Africa or Africanness, and that it's the white man's religion. So I don't think that any of us can deny that historically and in general on this side of the globe, we've been presented with images of a white Jesus, or of a Pantene Pro V Jesus, to Pastor Jerome Gay.
Right.
We've just been inundated with these images, but none of us are claiming that these images are accurate or even that they're appropriate, right? So here's the thing: if you look at the first century Jesus movement, or if you look at the setting of the Hebrew scriptures, if you ignore those things, then maybe this would make sense to you, right? This would only make sense to you as well if you ignore the African presence that we find in scripture, and if you ignore the African presence that we see in early church history. That's the only way that this meme or these type of statements would make sense to you. But we know that Christianity is a Jewish movement, right? It started in Palestine. It started in that upper room, that's Acts 2, and then it spread from there out to the rest of the world, okay? Of course, everyone in the region knew about the presence of Greco-Roman culture. They were very aware of it. Everyone was aware that Rome was in power, right? But Christianity wasn't started by the Romans. The Romans would have never started a religion that says that that it's only appropriate to worship one God. That doesn't even make sense.
Right.
Do you have anything to say?
No.
Okay. And then in terms of the inclusion of Africa, some of the earliest biblical manuscripts that we have come from Egypt, right? Tradition has John Mark traveling to Alexandria, and he established the earliest Christian church there, okay? We have North African church fathers. North Africa is in Africa, okay? We have North African church fathers, Clement of Alexandria, Origen of Alexandria, Athanasius of Alexandria. We have Cyprian, Tertullian, Augustine of Hippo. All of these men were North African. So to say that, that Africa was excluded from the narrative or from the historicity of Christianity, I mean, it's just in error. It's erroneous to believe that.
Right. I mean, and not only Northeast, but even Sub-Saharan Africa. When you talk about the Ethiopian eunuch,
Right.
He's actually from Meroe, Nubia, because he worked for the Kandake. Kandake was the empress of Nubia, right? And even now, most recently, we found out, shout out to Vincent Mantu, that Mansa Musa had Christians in his empire on the west side of Christianity prior to the Atlantic slave trade. So on both sides and in the middle, of course, with the Congo as well, it's like black and brown people were worshiping Yeshua way before, there was a transatlantic slave trade.
Right.
So.
Right. This is history. History. You can
next.
Yeah, you can go to the next one.
All right.
So this is something else that
man. Oh boy.
that Christianity was created at the Council of Nicaea. Okay, so thing is, in order for this to be true, we would have to have no mention of Christians, no mention of Christian doctrine, or no mention of Christianity prior to the 4th century. The Council of Nicaea, as we can see, was 4th century. Okay, so what do we do when we do what this meme says and we do our own research? Okay, we have in the 1st century we have Emperor Nero, who was emperor from 54 AD to 68 AD. Okay. And in 64 AD, so 10 years into his emperorship, a fire breaks out in Rome. It's called the Great Fire. It destroys 10 of the 14 sections of the city. Okay. And so we have Nero blaming Christians for the fire, right? He arrested Christians for the fire. He executed, literally killed Christians for the fire. This is 1st century. 1st century is before the 4th century. Okay. We have 2nd century, we have Ignatius of Antioch, who was sentenced to die in Rome. Okay. And so as he travels to Rome, he writes letters. He writes 7 of them. And to the Ephesians, you can go to the next slide, BK.
Sure.
Thank you. So to the Ephesians, here's an excerpt of his letter to the Ephesians. He says, I'll read it. Oh, hey, BK, you want to read it?
Sure. There is only one physician, very flesh, yet spirit too, uncreated and yet born, God and man in one agreed, very life and death indeed, fruit of God and Mary's seed, at once impassable and torn by pain and suffering here below, Jesus Christ, whom as our Lord we know.
Thank you. Clearly, this is doctrinal language written by a Christian, right? This is, again, 2nd century. 2nd century is before the 4th century. You can go to the next slide, BK.
Sure.
And then in the 3rd century, we have an emperor by the name of Decius. A lot of us are familiar with Diocletian. Diocletian was early 4th century, but I wanted to talk about Decius, who was 2nd century. And Decius was the emperor, and he mandated what's known as he issued, what's known as the Edict of Decius. And the Edict of Decius made it mandatory for the empire to worship Roman gods. Okay. And people who complied with this were given a certificate. Some Christians, bought their certificates, but you had to have a certificate. People who didn't have a certificate were punished for it. They were considered outlaws. Okay. And so we have the writings of, Eusebius of Caesarea, and we have writings from Cyprian where they talk about the repercussions. Both of them talk about the repercussions that this edict had on Christians. Okay. Again, this is third century. So we have 64 AD with Nero mentioning Christians. We have 110 AD with Ignatius of Antioch, and we have 3rd century with the Edict of Decius. All of these are historical events that happened prior to the Council of Nicaea. So Christianity couldn't have been created at the Council of Nicaea.
Right. And also, right, you have what's considered the oldest house church that we found in Dura Europos, which is in Syria. That's dated 233.
Before
right?
the 4th century.
You know what I mean? So it is what it is. So next slide.
Yes, you can go to the next slide. Now, I snuck this one in. This isn't an attack against Christianity per se, but it is near and dear to my heart. And so I just threw this in there. Do you want to go ahead and read it?
Sure. Do you know that women predate men? The oldest fossilized bones ever found were women. All of them were discovered in East Africa, Ethiopia to be exact. These women could reproduce asexual without the assistance of males. This was done by the Bartholin gland which women still possess to this day. Do you know women can produce semen in their bone marrow? Did you know that the X chromosome is 5 times larger than the Y chromosome? Women created us.
Okay. So this is along the lines of what drew my attention to what young Pharaoh said. So what this meme is referencing, although it doesn't explicitly say it, is what's called parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis, it's a form of reproduction that is asexual. So the parent, if you will, can reproduce without any outside influence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in this case, it is that, the Black woman was able to reproduce without a man present. Okay. So, I had addressed this already, but I'll just say a couple things. The whole claim of parthenogenic ability in women, it hinges on the bone marrow. Okay. Could bone marrow have ever produced semen? The answer is no. For my notes, I did write no in capital letters. Okay. So human bone marrow tissue, it has, just very quickly, human bone marrow tissue, it has two primary functions, depending on which bone marrow you're talking about, because there's two different kinds. Okay. It either produces blood cells, or it produces bone cartilage or fat cells. Okay. Sperm cells can only be produced by a certain type of cell when it undergoes a certain type of cell division. Okay. None of the cells in bone marrow tissue are able to have the capability of performing the required type of division, like at all. They're not capable. And this alone makes it impossible for women to be able to make semen in their bone marrow. Okay. And secondly, spermatogenesis in humans. Spermatogenesis is the production of the process of sperm cell production. Spermatogenesis in humans requires high levels of testosterone. Okay, the kind of levels that females, they don't produce. They don't produce those type of levels of testosterone. High levels. In fact, high levels of testosterone in women can lead to infertility. Okay. They just
Mm.
don't, it's not, if women produce that much testosterone, something's wrong. Okay. Female bodies simply aren't even equipped to do what this meme says. That's what I want to say about that.
That's a lot, man. Dropping gems. It's good.
Okay. And the third, I think this is the last, maybe the second last slide. This idea that Christianity was beat into Black people during slavery, right, by their slave masters. Do you want to go ahead and read the meme on the side there?
Sure. Make no mistake, when the slave masters beat our ancestors into conforming into their to their religion, it was not about saving their souls for a God who loved them. It was about conquering their souls, their personalities, their identity, and even their deities. To break them into obedient slaves, there was no love in that equation.
Okay. So, okay, we know this. We can see it in the record that it is historically true that, slavers, slaveholders absolutely did hijack and misuse Christianity and the Bible to do, just absolute evil against people who are made in the image of God. This is facts. Okay. Um, but the idea that, people of African descent were forced to abandon their indigenous beliefs and to accept Christianity that's not historically true. The notion that it was beat into them is not historically true. And we say this all the time, that you're just not giving your ancestors the credit that they
Mm-hmm.
should deserve.
That's right.
It's funny that ancestors are so respected, but then you just very much so disrespect another set of ancestors. But these people understood that their slave masters were giving them a broken and impostering Christianity. Imposturing is not a word, I made it up. But all we have to do is listen to the voices of people who were enslaved. And so I have here 2 slave narratives. Okay. Do you have anything to say before we?
No, let's go
Okay.
for it.
Okay. So
You want me to read this one?
yeah, sure. Go ahead. Thank you.
All right. So this is from William Ward, born as a slave in the early 1830s in Georgia, as reported by his interviewer from Born in Slavery: Slave Narratives from the Federal Writers Project, 1936-1938. So this is firsthand eyewitness testimony.
Yeah.
From an enslaved gentleman in the 1830s. All right. So he says, on Sundays, the slaves were permitted to have a religious meeting of their own. This usually took place in the backyard or in the building dedicated for this purpose. They sang spirituals, which gave vent to their true feelings. Many of these songs are sung today, but there was one person who did the preaching. His sermon was always built according to the master's instructions, which were that slaves must always remember that they belong to their masters and were intended to lead a life of loyal servitude. None of the slaves believed this. Hold up. Say it again. None of the slaves believed this, although they pretended to believe because of the presence of the white overseer. If this overseer was absent sometimes and the preacher varied in the text of his sermon, that is, if he preached exactly what he thought and felt, he was given a sound whipping.
This is facts. He was there. He would know. William would know. You can go to the next slide. I have one more slave narrative.
All right. And this is from another slave by the name of Carlette Martin. Says here, the plantation owner would not permit them to hold religious meetings or any other kinds of meetings, but they frequently met in secret to conduct religious services. When they were caught, the instigators, known or suspected, were severely flogged. Carlette recalls how her oldest brother was whipped to death for taking part in one of the religious ceremonies. This cruel act halted the secret religious services. She was born, in 1854 in Florida.
So, these slave narratives are, readily available online, and we can read about people's experiences. We can read about the ancestors. We can let them speak for themselves. These aren't words from ancestors who were forced to embrace the God that they didn't want to. In fact, they were beat because they did, right? Because they believed the book. It's ancestors who willingly loved and prayed to the God that they believed would deliver them, and he did eventually. So,
right.
Just the Kemetic communities, they're just wrong.
Right. Historically, it's such a case against that one particular point because you have early attestation of Africans who are even there during Pentecost, right? You have Ethiopian eunuch who's from sub-Saharan Africa. You have many of the church fathers from Northeast Africa. Mansa Musa himself talked about Christians in West Africa, right? We have attestation of believers in the Congo, all this transpiring way before the transatlantic slave trade.
Way before.
And once we're even in America during the slave trade, we see from the slaves' own mouths that they did not believe what the slave teachers, the slave masters were trying to show them, that they knew a difference. Frederick Douglass, a famous quote, he understood that real Christianity far, far differed than what these guys were trying to make it to be.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's why, we say that you have to ignore history, right? You have to ignore what really happened if you want to hold to these ideas that are, again, just simply erroneous. So,
right.
So I ended my the presentation with a quote. This is what I had posted this on social media, on my social media. So I'll just go ahead and read it. So this is it. Inevitably, non-Christian worldviews are simply unable to stand up to the truth of reality, and thus they're unreliable. Christianity, however, is wholly reliable because its foundation rests on a person who is truth, and truth is knowable. The conscious community gets a lot wrong, but there is good news. Truth is knowable, and his name is Jesus.
Amen. Amen. And you have here 1 Corinthians 15.
Mm-hmm,
It says,
mm-hmm.
"For I delivered to you as first importance what I also received, that Christ died for our sins in accordance with the scriptures, that he was buried, that he was raised on the third day in accordance with the scriptures, and that he appeared to Caiaphas, then to the 12." And this is very powerful because this is an ancient creedal statement.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is not something that Paul developed. In fact, most liberal scholars will tell you that this was crystallized within 10 to 12 months after the cross. So this is something before Paul converted. That these first, primitive Christians, if you will, they already worked out theology
Right.
within a year
Right.
after the cross.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So it's good stuff, man. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this. This
Thank you
was
for
amazing.
having me on a Saturday.
Yeah, yeah. So now, if you are up to it, would you mind taking a few questions from the chats?
Oh, really? People have been talking to me?
Well, I mean, they've been saying some things here. So,
Okay. If I don't know the answer, I'll divert to BK.
yeah, I'll try my best. I'll try my best. Yeah, Shadi said that you did a great job at Doctrine for the Block.
Oh, thank you, Shadi.
Yeah, yeah. So
I
as we wait
haven't been
for
watching
some,
the live chat at all, so.
that's okay. As we wait for some questions to materialize, is there anything that we can be expecting from you in the immediate future, Mr. New?
I mean, you can always expect me to be wrenching it out in live chats.
Wrenching it out, wrench ministry.
Yeah. Um, and then I keep on saying this. We still have our shows that we're gonna do.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. We got some things lined up, guys.
Yeah,
It's gonna be fun.
yeah. So
It's gonna be fun.
those are the two things that I can think about right
Oh,
now.
here's a question from Nate2D2. When are you starting your channel? That's a great question, sir.
Nate, only the Lord knoweth. Only the
Oh,
Lord.
wow, really?
Thank
Here's
you.
one from Carm. Is it true that you are black? That's the rumor.
Yeah, I've been black my whole life.
Your whole life?
My whole life.
Wow. Who'd have thunk it?
And that is my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Right. And of course, Believe in Thinkers says, yes, when are you starting it? People want some content from you.
So let me say this, believing thinkers. Hi, Sean. Listen, we are, if I can use this opportunity, Nate, maybe you can put this in the live chat. We are trying to help out our brother in Christ who is believing thinkers. His family has been going through a rough time, and we really want to rally around him and help him. Pray for their family, financially support them if you can. And so, Nate, if Nate can, if he can put the link for the GoFundMe that has been started for the family. Believing thinkers. He's an amazing man, and family man and apologist in his own right. And so I just want to put that out there.
Amen. Good stuff. Good stuff. Michelle would like to know, how does it feel to end young Pharaoh's career?
She didn't, though.
That's the rumor. That's the rumor.
But we dispel rumors and myths.
Someone asks here, is Dnew single?
To my knowledge, she is.
Wow, we're speaking in third person. Interesting. All right. Here's a question here. Where did your passion come from with this subject and all the education research you have with it? A lot to take in.
Where did my passion come from? Really, it was just, okay, so here's the thing with the conscious community is that, for years and years, they have been banging against Christianity, right? If you go on YouTube, you and just, I don't know, just type in conscious community, type in House of just type in maybe conscious community, and you can see that, this group has been banging against Christianity for far too long, and there hasn't been an appropriate response from Christians, and it's just like, the time for, not addressing it is over. Like, it's 2022, right? The days are over, and so to answer your question specifically, my passion came from just seeing the lies out there, and more specifically the lies that people believe, right? We have to say something. We have to say something. It would be one thing if it's just one person who is saying these things and no one believes them. But you have people like Young Pharaoh who who has, as we said before, like over 500,000 subscribers. That's a lot of ears listening to him. And so, we have to cover the error with truth. So.
Right. And to believing thinkers, yeah, I mean, I am more than happy to have people help you out, bro. I've heard great things, so we good. We're definitely good. Mr. Smith, the Black conscious community includes all Black people belief systems. You all are new and don't know the history. It's interesting how you assume how long we've been involved in, dealing with this particular community, as if you know us, sir. So I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Dnew.
Yeah, Lord, should I say this? Let me just say, I have encountered Mr. Smith in other live chats, and his facts tend to be different. His what
alternative facts
different from truth. So I'll just say that.
Right. In fact, he reiterates, you all don't understand what the conscious community is all about.
He also said that GMS and Sakari are Christians. So
yeah, that's telling. That's very telling. So let's see what else here. Any more questions? Any more? FJ, get him.
I'm just a delicate little flower.
Oh man. Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone else? Yeah. Also, he says all Blacks' beliefs are in the conscious community. Not all Blacks, because they're not very fond of Black Christians or Christianity proper, because that's, like Dnew said in her presentation, that is the one thing that unifies all the different factions within the community, the conscious community, is their equal hatred for Christianity.
Like,
because the Moors bang on the Hebrews bang on the Cometics, but when a Christian shows up, all of a sudden they're family now, and the enemy of my enemy is now my friend.
And they're not cryptic with it at all. They're not esoteric with it. They tell you. So, I mean,
Daisy would just want to say thank you for this. Was great. You two are amazing. Well, thank you, Daisy. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. And thank you, GMAJO. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, I missed a question here. Keep that same energy. Let me see. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't see which question was that? Keep that same energy. I'm trying to look for it here. Let's see. Oh, here goes one. I am looking to deepen my studies on church history. Could you point me to any resources for believers to study church history?
Yeah, I should get. Can I go get?
Sure.
For a moment. Okay, hold on.
And as you're doing that, here's another quick one. If you could hear it while you're looking for it, keep that same energy. He says, "Can I get your autograph on my copy of the book you contributed to?" Which on they talking about Vocab's book. So when you come back, you can answer that too. All right. While we're waiting for her to come back, if anybody has any questions for me, I'll be more than happy to make an attempt to answer because Lord knows I don't know everything, but I will give it the old college try if you were to ask me a question. Oh, she's back. So,
Okay, so some really good resources that I have that are hard copy and not like Kindle is this, The Story of Christianity by Justo L. Gonzalez. Really, really, really great book. It covers from day one up into, I think, the medieval period. So this is a really good resource. I have learned a lot from this book. And then Michael Kruger is just a great author. He's written several books, and the one that I have here is Christianity at the Crossroads. And it talks about, it centers on second century because we have a lot of stuff about the first century and, the centuries beyond the second, but he really focuses on the second century. It's very informative.
right.
And then I have this by Michael Heyman, rediscovering the church fathers. So those are some resources that I have. I'm sure people could give other resources, but those are the two.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Keep the same energy. Would like to know how he can get a autographed copy of the book that you recently were a part of. In fact, if you could speak about that book a little bit, that'd be great.
Oh, okay. So there is a book coming out in hopefully by the end of this month. Hopefully March 18th is supposed to be the date. Vocab Malone is coming out with his second book, and it is. Hold on.
Yes. No, I do not know who Keep That Same Energy is. Would you like to reveal yourself, sir or madam?
It's Chris.
Oh, Chris, Detroit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's I figured. Okay.
So this is Vocab Malone's book, his second book that he just finished writing. It is called Street Level Apologetics: Passion for the City, Clarity for the People. And so it's an amazing book. If you have a passion for evangelism, or you want to have a passion for evangelism, this book can be a tool that will really encourage you to do it. It will encourage you and just inspire you, where you will actually be able to think, "Oh, I might be able to do this." And so there's also contributing authors, Adam Coleman, MJ Jackson, and
Nice.
myself. I contributed a little bit as well. So it's an amazing book. I would encourage everyone when it comes out to get it. You'll be able to order it off Amazon. You'll be able to order it where books are sold, as they say.
Cool. Mr. Smith says Christians are about the Black conscious community. Why lie? Why are you lying, Dnew?
I don't even know what the question is.
Yeah, it's weirdly worded. We're not a part. I think he means that we are a part of the conscious community. Well, we are a part if you're talking about that they want us to be a punching bag for the conscious community. If that's what you mean, then yeah, we're a part. We're the reason why their YouTube channels pop the way they do. Because God forbid that they actually had to teach about their own worldview. Right. Nobody would watch. But everybody likes to see a good beating, right? So everybody comes to see their convictions affirmed, right? They don't go for information; they go for affirmation. So no, we Christians are not part of the conscious community. We defend ourselves against the conscious community. All right. Let's see what else here. Let's see. Yes, it's called Street Level Apologetics by Vocab, MJ, and Dnew. You see, this is interesting. So, Now he was referring this to Nate, but he said, "Are you displaying the fruits of the Holy Spirit? Would Jesus do and say what you posting?" He always kills me. Like you have people who don't believe in any of this, but want us to actually, show us exercising the very things that they say don't exist. That always kills me.
Yeah.
Always kills me.
Keep him in prayer.
Where do you get the book? Well, as you said, where books will be sold.
Yeah, wherever books are sold.
How many of you have been involved with any of the pioneers of the Black conscious community? I'll wait. Well, if you was here from the very beginning, you know that the way Dnew kind of got involved, she took on some of the biggest names in the conscious community. Brother Polite and Young Pharaoh. Many of us are very much involved. I was personally honored to be part of the research team for the debate versus Jabari and Dr. Bantu. So we've definitely been involved in a lot. Adam Coleman has dealt with many people, in the conscious community. He's made various appearances on Sonetta. So has Vocab Malone. So we engage quite a bit with the conscious community. So that's a strange thing to say here.
And the thing is, the pioneers of the community are putting out information. They're literally telling us what they believe. And so I don't know why we think that we can't interact with information.
Yes, Polite. We did a whole video where she dismantled Polite. Yes, you should see it. It's good stuff. Number 4 says here, Muslim tactic. Just say something outrageous and heretical, get refuted and rebuked firmly, and then says, act like Jesus, as if they know the conduct the true Lord Jesus inspires. Yeah, it's ridiculous, bro. I agree. Yes, they also run from Damon Richardson as well. And MJ Jackson. I lived in Jabari's head rent-free. Yeah, this is true. So it's just weird that you make all this stuff up and not know, like, we've all engaged to some capacity here, but yeah. So they had to get Carrier to try to refute Damon, and he smashed Carrier. And these are also facts.
These are facts.
You guys brought in the white man to defend yourself. And he caught it too. So it's not good. It's not looking good. In fact, you guys been catching a lot of L's this past year and a half. A lot of L's. So with that being said, this is very, very enjoyable. And you was right, Dnew. This was a delightful conversation.
I wanted it to be delightful on a Saturday.
Oh, quite so. Oh, yeah. How can we forget? Pastor Bennett got batted. He got, there's a whole cemetery that was built by Pastor Bennett for all the bodies he caught.
All the great questions, the great stuff questions. Yeah.
Ran through all of them.
Yeah.
The delightful conversation. Very good, very good. So yeah, right? Me, MJ, Dnew, Vocab, Pastor Bennett, Damon, Adam, Vince, Bantu, all engaged with the conscious community. Tell us the Christians in the conscious community, though. You know what I mean? So, he says, I talked to Dick Gregory, Dr. Ben, Steve Coakley, Dr. Francis Cress Wesley, Dr. Africa, Dr. Walter Williams, sir, and you know nothing about the Black conscious community. You know who also doesn't know anything about Blackness? Dick Gregory, Dr. Ben, Steve Coakley, Dr. Francis Cress Wesley. If you ever look at where they get the information from, they don't get it from ancient Africa.
And Michael, Dr. Ben wasn't a doctor, just so you know.
Right. So, so we know where they get the information from, and it's not indigenous to Black folk, And yes, this is true. BK offered chocolate coffee, and he called BK a Grand Dragon. yeah, man. So, I guess it is what it is. But to wrap things up, is there any last things you would like to say before we are out of here?
No, just thank everyone for coming to the live chat today. Thanks for watching. Thanks, BK, for having me on.
Of
I
course, of
appreciate
course.
it. And Christianity is true. That's what I want to say.
Amen. With that, it's Dnew and BK signing off. Peace.